My wife wanted to open our marriage. Now, I have a new lover, and she regrets everything. She cut off her friends, left her job, and started showing up at my house like nothing ever happened. Never once did I think I would get to this point, but here we are. My wife and I have been together for 10 years, but married for 8. We met in college and were each other's first and only. I honestly thought we had a unique and beautiful relationship because of that, but it appears it was just me. Some time ago, my wife began working at a new company. At first, she found it difficult to fit in because she's always been reserved, but after encouragement from me, she made friends with a group of girls. Some were single, some divorced, and others dating but not married. I was glad she had friends, but then she started going out for drinks all the time. She got into partying, and I noticed the change in her right away. She started coming home later and later, and we stopped being close. I didn't want to be that husband who tried to control her, but I couldn't help feeling left behind. Then her company got a new manager. My wife and her friends really liked him. She started mentioning him, at first just in passing, then all the time. It wasn't just about work anymore either. When I asked her about it, she shrugged it off. That's when she started asking if I regretted not having more experience with women. I told her no, she was all I ever needed, but she looked sad and quickly changed the subject. Then, out of nowhere, she brought up an open marriage. She said she didn't want to lose me, but didn't want to have regrets either. I was floored. I asked if this had anything to do with the manager, and she denied it, but her answer didn't sit right with me. Still, I didn't want to force her into anything, so I reluctantly agreed. That's how it started. She went on dates, had one-night stands, and after a while, she was basically in a relationship with the manager. I tried to go out too, but it never felt right, so I mostly stayed home. My wife would check in on me, ask if I was okay, but nothing changed. I started to feel like I was disappearing. Then I met someone. She just moved here from South Korea, and she was different from anyone I'd ever met. We clicked right away. We started seeing each other, and for the first time in a long time, I felt alive again. She made me feel wanted. My wife noticed, but at first she thought it was cute. As things got more serious, she started to change. She came home early, made dinner, dropped by my work with lunch, and tried to be close again. But for me, something had changed. I barely went along with it, and when I did, it was just to get it over with. One night, I asked her what brought all this on. She said she wanted to show me she loved me. I couldn't help but laugh. I asked her about her friends, her manager, all the nights she was out. She didn't answer. She went to bed in tears. The next day, she said she wanted to close the marriage. She told me she regretted everything and wanted us to focus on our relationship again. She finally admitted her friends had planted the idea. The manager encouraged her. It was thrilling for a while, but she realized it cost her too much. She said she never needed to compare, that what we had was special, but now she felt like she'd killed our marriage. I told her I wasn't sure I could see her as my wife again. She broke down and cried. I just held her as she cried herself to sleep on the couch. After that, she quit her job, cut off her friends, and stopped seeing the manager. But I didn't cut off my lover. I wasn't ready to let go of the one person who made me feel good about myself. We went to therapy. My wife confessed everything. Her friends egged her on, the manager flirted, and she convinced herself it was harmless. She swore nothing physical happened until after we opened the marriage, but finally admitted they'd done things that weren't technically sex. That hit me hard. She fell apart in front of the counselor. Later, I asked her what made her see the manager for what he was. She said she overheard him talking about her to a coworker, bragging about how easy it was. She realized she'd just been a distraction to him. She said she never stopped loving me, but it didn't make the hurt go away. She begged me to start over somewhere new, but I said I needed time. When we got home, I started packing. She got a call from one of her old friends who was in tears. Turns out, after my wife left her job, the friend hooked up with the manager too, and now she had a pregnancy scare. Her boyfriend found out, everything exploded, and it was all because she was curious about the experience. I've been staying in an apartment ever since. I've also seen a divorce lawyer at my brother's recommendation, just to be safe. As of now, I am not really willing to fight for this marriage, and it seems my wife can sense it. Before I left, she tried to initiate intimacy, but when I refused, she yelled and asked, "What does your lover do for you that I can't?" I didn't respond. I shook my head and told her, "If you still can't tell after all that's happened, then it's clear where our marriage is headed," and left.
After I moved out, it was like someone set off a bomb in our social circle. My wife's story spread fast, but no one ever got it right. Every version made it messier. Her old company turned into a rumor mill, with everyone trying to guess who did what. I found out later that the HR department even called my wife in to question her about inappropriate relationships. She told me about it in a shaky voice one night over the phone. Apparently, she'd been named in an official complaint, and the manager was already under investigation for other things. Soon, her so-called friends started dropping her. Kim and another friend, Tara, were the first to go silent. Tara blocked my wife on everything. Kim sent me a long message, basically begging me to make sure she didn't get thrown under the bus. "I never slept with anyone at work," she said. "I didn't even want to go out drinking most of the time. Your wife just changed." At the same time, the manager started turning on everyone. He told HR that he was being harassed by my wife, that she'd made up the whole story about them being together. It didn't work. A couple women came forward to say he'd tried similar things with them. The department split into factions. One group said my wife was a victim. The other said she ruined everything by not keeping her private life separate from work. On my side, things weren't much better. Old friends texted me weird half questions like, "Hey, did you really tell her to do all that?" Or, "Man, I heard some wild stuff. Hope you're okay." Even my mom called asking what was happening after she heard something at church. For weeks, I found myself defending my reputation to people who honestly barely even knew the whole story. The final blow came at a party I went to out of habit. Someone asked, "So are you the guy with the open marriage?" I stood there, drink in hand, not sure whether to laugh or throw it at the wall. I left early and didn't go back. Meanwhile, my wife called me at least once a week, usually in tears. She apologized, sometimes for herself, sometimes for me. She said she'd heard I was seeing someone seriously, and then begged me not to believe anything the manager said about her. I tried to keep it polite, but each call felt more draining than the last. Our divorce dragged on, even after we agreed to split most things evenly. At first, my wife insisted she wanted a peaceful split, but as soon as paperwork started, she sent a huge list of demands. She wanted the house, the car, half my savings, and the dog. Her lawyer sent a letter threatening to pursue full restitution substitution for pain and suffering if I didn't comply. My lawyer was tough, a no-nonsense woman named Marissa. Don't let her guilt you, she said. She's trying to play the victim card. We dug into finances. My wife claimed she'd contributed more to the down payment, which wasn't true. She even tried to say I'd been emotionally neglectful, pointing to texts where I said I felt disconnected. The texts were real, but she left out everything that happened before she started seeing the manager. We had a mediation meeting where she broke down in tears, talking about how lonely she was and how she'd lost all her friends. I felt a weird mix of guilt and anger. Guilt because I knew she really was alone. Anger because it was her decisions that blew up our lives. The mediator asked if we could try to see each other's point of view. My wife looked at me with red-rimmed eyes and whispered, "Please, can we just end this so I can move on?" I nodded, but her lawyer kept pushing for more money. There was a point where I found out she'd withdrawn nearly £5,000 from our savings account a week before the separation. She claimed it was for living expenses, but she'd also paid for a 2-week Airbnb and a bunch of new furniture. Marissa said we could take it to court, but it'd just drag things out. I ended up letting it go, wanting to be done with it all. The house was the last thing to settle. My wife eventually agreed to let me keep it, but only if I paid her a lump sum. I scraped together the money, cashed out a couple investments, and made the transfer. Signing the paperwork felt like getting released from a really long, really bad prison sentence. Suman and I started getting serious during all this chaos. She helped me move my stuff, hung up new curtains, even helped repaint the living room to make it feel like a new start. We went out with her friends, cooked dinner together, tried to build something that wasn't just a reaction to my marriage falling apart, but the divorce drama kept creeping in. My wife sent Suman a message on Instagram. At first, it was just a couple warnings about me being emotionally closed off, but then she started asking about my whereabouts, even hinting that Suman should be careful. Suman showed me the messages. She laughed them off, but I could see it bothered her. Things came to a head one evening when Suman and I were at dinner and my wife called. She was crying and said she'd just seen a photo of us online and couldn't believe how fast I'd moved on. I apologized, but she didn't want apologies. She just wanted me to listen. I hung up, feeling like I just betrayed both women at once. After that, Suman started pulling away a bit. She asked if I needed closure with my wife, or if maybe I wasn't ready to move forward. I told her I was, but I think she could tell I wasn't always sure. She admitted she felt weird being the other woman, even though I'd been honest from the start. I tried to keep my life with Suman separate, but it was like my past wouldn't let me. I got a call from my ex-wife's mother, who basically told me I'd destroyed her daughter's life. I said I was sorry, but she hung up before I could say anything else. Suman asked if she should move out until things cooled off. I begged her not to. We compromised. She stayed, but we both agreed to take things slow. About a month after the divorce was finalized, my ex-wife's life kept spiraling. She lost her job in the city after her old manager tried to paint her as a troublemaker. She called me one night, absolutely wasted, and begged me to help her find a new job. "No one will talk to me. They think I'm crazy or toxic," she said, sobbing. I told her I couldn't help and hung up, feeling sick for hours. Sumin, meanwhile, started getting offers for jobs in other cities. She asked if I'd move with her. The thought of leaving it all behind was tempting. We talked late into the night about starting over somewhere else. I told her the truth. "I'm scared. I don't want to run away, but I don't want to keep living in the shadow of this mess." She hugged me and said she'd wait for my decision. My ex tried one last tactic. She threatened to go public with our story on social media, claiming I was abusive and that the whole open marriage was my idea. I called Marissa, who said we could file a cease and desist if she tried. In the end, she never did. Maybe she realized how little sympathy she'd get, or maybe she just ran out of energy to fight. After the divorce settled, I thought things would finally calm down. They didn't. It started with a vague tweet. Something about married men who gaslight their wives into open marriages then play victim. It got a couple thousand likes. At first, I didn't even know it was about me. But then Kim reposted it with a "some people need to read this" caption. And then Tara liked it. That's when I knew. Next came the TikTok video. A girl from their old office made a post titled, "What happens when work friendships go too far?" She didn't name anyone, but she used phrases like corporate affair, emotional manipulation, and collateral damage. The comment section went wild. Someone must have connected dots because within a day, people were mentioning Sumin by name. Sumin ran a small art studio online. Nothing crazy, just handmade pieces, mostly local stuff. Her business profile started getting weird comments. Some called her a homewrecker. Others asked how it felt to be the upgrade. One said, "He'll cheat on you too once he's bored." She laughed it off at first. Then she started turning off comments entirely. One night, I walked into the kitchen and found her deleting DMs with this tired look on her face. I asked if she was okay. She shrugged and said, "Yeah, just noise." But I knew it wasn't. It all came to a head when her mom called her from Korea, crying, asking why strangers were messaging her on Facebook about Sumin stealing someone's husband. That was the first time I saw Sumin cry over all this. She didn't sob. She didn't scream. She just sat there at the dining table with her face in her hands and whispered, "I didn't ask for any of this." I felt helpless. I dragged her into this mess. And even though I didn't post anything, didn't say anything public, it was still my story that people were twisting. I tried defending her in a couple threads, but it just made things worse. One person screenshotted my comment and posted it with classic gaslighter behavior. I started getting angry at everyone. At Kim, at that co-worker, at myself. I even considered messaging my ex to ask if she told anyone, but I didn't. I knew she hadn't. This wasn't her doing. It was just the fallout of a bomb we'd both helped build. Suman started staying at her studio longer. Some nights she didn't come home until 11. I asked her if she needed needed space. She said no, but she didn't say yes either. I started sleeping on the couch just in case. One morning, I got a text from her. Just 3 words. We need space. And that's when it really hit me. No matter how much I wanted to believe the past was over, it was still very much with us. And it wasn't just mine anymore. It was hers too. We didn't fight when she packed her bag. We didn't cry. She folded a couple sweaters, grabbed her toothbrush, and said she was going to stay with a friend. I asked if she wanted help carrying her suitcase. She said she could manage. That night, I sat on the floor next to the bed, just staring at the dent in the pillow where her head used to be. I wanted to call her. I didn't. The next morning, she texted and asked to meet for coffee. She picked a place halfway between her studio and the apartment. It was small and quiet. We sat by the window. I tried to smile. She didn't. She said, I love you, but I feel like I'm constantly walking in your ex-wife's shadow. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, hands wrapped around a cup that had already gone cold. She kept talking. Everywhere we go, it's somewhere you two used to go. Every time someone mentions your name online, I'm dragged into it. I didn't sign up for this. I thought we were building something new, but it feels like I'm just the person helping you survive the fallout. I told her I understood. She nodded like she appreciated the effort, but she also knew I didn't fully get it. We agreed to take a weekend apart, not as a breakup, just time. After she left, I wandered into the closet and found a box I hadn't opened since the move. Inside were a bunch of old receipts, a few photos, and a restaurant menu from the place where my ex and I had our 5th anniversary. I sat on the floor for a while, just holding the menu, wondering what the hell happened to me. The next day, I drove back to the neighborhood we used to live in. The bakery on the corner had changed owners. The park down the street now had a dog run, but the apartment building looked the same. I didn't go inside. I just stood across the street and stared. I remembered how we used to argue about laundry and how she'd always forget to set timers. I remembered Sunday mornings when she'd read on the couch while I made eggs. I remembered the night she first mentioned the open marriage. She had been so calm, like she was reading off a list she'd practiced. I went to our old grocery store next, walked through the aisles, saw the cereal she liked, and felt something tighten in my chest. Not because I missed her, but because I realized how much of my identity had been built in that relationship, and how much of me was still stuck in it. I drove home without the radio on, just silence. When I got back, the apartment felt hollow, even with Sumin's art on the walls, even with her slippers by the door. I realized I didn't just want her back. I wanted to be the version of myself she first fell for, the one who made her feel chosen, not dragged into some long, bitter sequel. That night, I wrote her a message. I didn't ask her to come home. I didn't beg. I just told her the truth, that I wasn't over everything, that I was trying, that I hoped she'd come back, not because I needed rescuing, but because I wanted to earn being with her. She didn't reply right away. When she finally did, it was a simple, thank you for saying that. I need more time. So I waited, and in that waiting, I stopped trying to fix the past. I just let it breathe. I hadn't heard from my ex in weeks. The last I saw of her was a blurry video someone reposted from a private story. She was out at some bar, slurring her words and yelling at a bouncer. A friend sent it to me with the caption, "Is this her?" I didn't answer, but yeah, it was. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name and handwriting I recognized right away. Inside was 6 pages, front and back. It smelled like the soap she used to use. She said she was in rehab, somewhere out of state. She didn't name the place, just called it a place with no mirrors and too much oatmeal. She wrote, "This isn't a guilt trip. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to explain before I stopped talking altogether." Then she started from the beginning. "I never felt like I was enough, even before you. I used to watch my mom put on lipstick just to talk to the mailman. She told me once that men don't love you unless you give them a reason every day. That got in my head early. I think that's why I chased attention like a dog with a broken leg. It didn't matter who it came from. I just needed to know I still had it." She admitted she'd started drinking more during the marriage. Said the first time she got blackout drunk with her coworkers, she woke up terrified and lied to me about where she'd been. "You always believed me." That made it worse. She said she never planned on sleeping with the manager, but the attention, the compliments, the way he made her feel like she hadn't aged 10 years in her marriage, it all added up. I got addicted to being wanted. Not loved, just wanted. There's a difference, and I didn't know it until it was too late. She talked about the night she saw Sumin and me online. She said she didn't recognize me at first, that I looked like someone who'd let go. "It made me hate myself, not because you moved on, but because I realized you were free, and I was still stuck in a loop I built myself." The last page hit the hardest. "I hope she's good to you. I hope you let her love you without testing her every step of the way like you did with me. I know I hurt you. I know I wrecked everything, but for whatever it's worth, I really did love you. Just badly. Just wrong. I don't want to be part of your story anymore, but thank you for being part of mine." There was no signature, just a single line at the bottom that said, "Please don't write back." I sat with the letter in my lap for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't rip it up. I just kept reading that one line over and over, trying to figure out if it was supposed to be mercy or punishment. In the end, I put it back in the envelope and locked it in a drawer I hadn't opened since we moved in. I didn't hear from her again. A couple months passed. Sumin came back, quietly. No big moment, no dramatic reunion. She just walked in one evening, dropped her keys on the counter and said, "I brought dinner." I didn't ask if she was staying. I just set the table. We didn't talk much about what had happened, at least not right away. She focused on work. I kept busy helping my brother with a few house projects. We slept in the same bed, but there was a gap between us. Not just physically, like we were both waiting to see if the other person still fit. Then one day I got a message from an old mutual friend. My ex was out of rehab. She was staying with her cousin, doing better. I didn't respond, but I thought about it a lot more than I should have. The next week I passed by the cafe we used to go to. Out of nowhere, nowhere, I walked in. The place hadn't changed. I sat down, ordered the drink she used to like, and texted her. I'm not looking to rehash everything, but if you ever want to talk in person, one last time, I'm open to that. She responded later that night. We met at a park, somewhere neutral, public enough that it couldn't get emotional in the wrong way. She looked different, not bad, just smaller, like life had wrung her out and now she was starting fresh, still damp from the rinse. She smiled when she saw me. I was afraid you wouldn't come. I said, I was afraid I would. We sat on a bench, watching kids on scooters and dogs chasing each other. She asked how I was. I told her the truth, that I was tired, but okay. She nodded. Yeah, that sounds right. We talked about everything and nothing. Rehab, her job search, how her cousin had become her therapist without meaning to. She said she'd started journaling, that she was learning to sit with silence. I told her about the letter, that I'd read it more than once, that I wasn't mad anymore. She said that was all she could hope for. Then she said something that stuck. I don't want to be forgiven. I want to be understood, even if it's too late. I told her I got it. Before we left, she asked if she could hug me. It was the most human we'd been with each other in years. No tension, no hunger, just a quiet moment between two people who shared too much to ever be strangers, but not enough to still be lovers. When I got home, Sumin was painting in the living room. She looked up and asked, "Did you go?" I said, yeah. She didn't look hurt, just curious. Do you feel done now? I nodded. Yeah, I do. She turned back to the canvas. Okay, then let's finally stop dragging ghosts around. That night, we stayed up late, not talking about the past, not planning the future, just existing in the same room, both of us finally breathing like the air had cleared. A month later, Sumin got the job offer. It was in Seattle, full-time, decent pay, something creative. She sat me down and said she wasn't asking me to go. She just needed to know if I wanted to. I didn't answer right away, not because I didn't care, but because I finally realized this wasn't about chasing something. It was about choosing something. We talked about it for days. Some nights we circled the same questions. Other nights we just sat in silence, but there was no pressure, no one begging, no one running. In the end, she left. I didn't go with her, not out of fear, not out of doubt, but because, for the first time in a long time, I needed to know who I was on my own. We hugged at the airport, no dramatic goodbyes, no promises we couldn't keep. She just said, I'll call, you better answer. And I said, I always have. After she left, I repainted the apartment, got rid of some stuff I hadn't touched since the divorce, bought a new couch that didn't carry any history, even changed my phone number. It felt good, not like erasing everything, just clearing space. I started therapy, for real this time, not as a favor to someone, not as a last resort, just because I wanted to get better at being myself. My therapist asked why I came in. I said, I don't want my past to be the loudest voice in the room anymore. I reconnected with my brother too. We grabbed beers, talked about stupid stuff, laughed more than I thought I could. He told me he was proud of me. I believed him. One night, I sat in the middle of the living room floor, surrounded by boxes I didn't need to unpack. I looked around and realized I wasn't waiting for anything. Not a phone call, not a text, not closure, just peace. And it wasn't loud, it wasn't exciting, but it was mine.